welcome to an actual morning Saturday 6 where the intro still works. Or maybe in my head it still works. I'm Rob Bowron. I'm the econometrician behind Bowron, an advanced stat system for college football. We're going to walk through, this is the Saturday 6. And as the name implies, we're going to walk through 6 games from an advanced stats perspective today. So if you haven't watched this before, we're going to run through the 6 games. I'm going to set myself a timer for 5 minutes. I occasionally do make it in 5 minutes. We're going to walk through advanced stats for the teams we're going to cover and the games we're going to cover from Bowron. Bowron is a drive level advanced stats system for college football. All the stats you're going to see today are going to be controlling for opponent and field position. It's like 6 in the morning my time. I've been up a little bit getting this ready to go. I've got my coffee. I'm pretty excited. I mean, week 6 is we are all in season data for Bowron at this point. And that does mean in some ways this will be a little bit of a wild ride this week. And I mean, there are some real positives with this that come with being and doing only in-season data at this point. I have Colorado, teams that are very, very bad and are worse than their projections. Colorado, Stanford. Who else is just bombing at the moment? There's just not enough coffee to like have it instantly come to your mind. Oh, Arizona State, Nebraska. Rutgers is worse. Rutgers wasn't great last year, but they were better than they look right now. But on the positive side, if you take teams like, and there's Kansas, Duke, TCU, Washington's a little bit better than their teams that are better than their projection, in particular teams that are better than their projections by a lot, like say Kansas, TCU, Duke. You could argue Syracuse as well. Those teams were going to get far more correct with this without those preseason projections. And in Bowron, we do Bayesian weighting. So it's purely a decision how much preseason projections are going to count in any particular week, as opposed to putting them into some against the spread model that runs after Bowron that people are going to keep in all season. And there are people that keep projections in all season. We don't in Bowron. It doesn't improve projection accuracy after a certain point. And we really reached that point for Bowron. Bowron is very much an in-season model. Anyway, so we're going to have, there's going to be some wildness still to be had in the data. There are some teams that have played far better. Texas Tech, I think, is an example. They played pretty well up to this point. I'm interested to see. We're not going to cover them today. They have, or are we? I can't remember. We are not. But Texas Tech's a team. They're going to get Oklahoma State today. Texas Tech has played far better on their drive efficiency up to this point. They have a pretty big split between their drive efficiency and then their per play type numbers, which are your explosives, your play efficiency, your negative drives. There's a very large split there. Usually only over the entirety of a season, like a service academy is able to maintain that kind of split where you have incredibly high drive efficiency. You have the kind of execution required to execute drives where you're not putting up a ton of big plays and still be able to finish them and put up points. So we will have some teams that I think are going to come back a little more to earth. We're also have teams that you would think of, and we're going to cover one in particular today in Utah that I think the argument really with Utah is they haven't really played it. They haven't really played anyone really good yet. Florida hasn't played all that well up to this point. Nobody else on Florida or on Utah's schedule has done them a ton of favors by playing well either before or after playing the Utes. And outside of Florida, it's been San Diego State, Arizona State. Who else? And then Oregon State hasn't been playing that well either. And that's really left Utah in a spot where it's hard for the model to rate them higher than they are because they haven't, they've done fine against really bad competition, but they haven't like blown anyone out of the water. And that's really what like we're going to get to see today, you know, in a really good, interesting matchup against UCLA. We're going to get a real idea of where Utah sits. They are often, this is not the first time we've had a Utah slow start problem as well, right? I mean, so the model might not be missing anything. The Utes are a little bit of a slow starting team in a lot of years. And it's not just like we should have had Cam Rising as a quarterback like last year. They've had some slow starts in other years. But then if they put it together down the stretch, another thing about beta rank is that it has a time decay weighted in. We care about games. I mean, in particular, as you start to get late in the season, we care about games that happen in week 10 a lot more than we care about games that happen in week 1. Anyway, I'm excited to get through this and cover all these games. We've got some really good games today on the docket, and really too by the end of this week, you know, and there are still like a handful of teams running around, you know, with, you know, only 3 or 4 games under their belts. I mean, a lot of teams only have 4 FBS games under their belts at this point. This will give us, you know, for most teams, 5 FBS games worth of data to work against. And that's when, you know, beta rank really does start to lock in a lot of ways. So I am excited to get after this week too, because like this is the information gain, though not as large as you're getting in like from like week 2 to week 3, is still substantial at this point for getting teams correct. So I'm excited to get to that. And beta rank managed to go, it's sitting at 3-2 in the week against the spread. And I feel good about the 2 loss. I mean, it's not often that you get to say that. Like sometimes you're like, you know, like beta rank just got that one wrong. But in particular, like Nevada last night, you know, beta rank had Nevada opening spread was -5. Beta rank had them at 5 1/3. Nevada ends up losing to Colorado State 17-14, but gave up 2 defensive. I mean, an interception, you know, pick 6 and a fumble return for a touchdown. I mean, that's not going to happen very often in a game. You know, like where that higher percentage of your points is coming off defensive TDs. Anyway, let's hop in and let's do the games for the week, because I got to get to the gym and then go coach a soccer game, you know, like the usual Saturday mornings. All right, we're starting out with Red River. I'm really excited for this game. We've got Steve Sarkisian as your head coach for Texas. Brent Venables, of course, is your head coach at Oklahoma. We've got, I mean, this matchup I think is also particularly interesting. Oklahoma has played a tough schedule up to this point, as beta rank is grading it. Beta rank really likes what TCU's done up to this point. So what you're going to see here for Oklahoma is that the model is like, hey, Oklahoma might be pretty good because they've played some tough teams. Kansas State's a pretty good team too. We'll see if that holds up in this game, because the beta rank actually really likes Texas. Texas is like, wow, Oklahoma has some losses where like, yeah, you know, they should have lost that game. In the model, Texas has some games that they should have won, including against Alabama in the model. Texas right now sits at number 3 overall in beta rank, 7 on offense. Your offensive play caller here, of course, is Steve Sarkisian, one of the best in the game. They're going to likely get Quinn Ewers back for this game. They're set at number 7 overall, 10 in drive efficiency. They're doing a really good job finishing drives to put up points for the most part. Number 6 in explosive drives. They're doing a great job putting up big plays. 6 in play efficiency as well. This is the least important of the core 4 beta rank metrics. But your ability to put up a consistently high yards per play does matter, and it does count towards points. Where Texas has been hurting, and this killed them a bit in the Bama game, and this definitely killed them against Texas Tech, turnovers and 3 and outs. Too many turnovers, too many 3 and outs. Negative drives have been a little bit of a problem, but even with Hudson Card in there, they've been very good offensively. They're at 24 in effective rush, number 8 in effective pass. Bijan Robinson's sort of your headliner, of course, with this Texas offense in a lot of ways, but Card's been really good, and they've been able to rely on his arm. Card is at 69% completion percentage, 8.6 per. Ewers in a, you know, I think what you would argue in like, you know, a small sample against Alabama and some games that, I think a game that wasn't a great measure of where he's at. But he's at, 69% and 10 per completion. Ewers is likely going to get the start today, but I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Card played. Like, he certainly played well enough to deserve it. To stay and get some reps in. Oklahoma is at 22 overall in beta rank on defense right now. And it's really all coming from, I think, some play calling and execution for Venables, because they have some problems, as we saw in that TCU game. I don't expect them to have like complete coverage breakdowns again and give up. Like, I would expect them to have given up a lot of points against TCU. I would not have expected them to, repeat the performance where they're just like completely blowing all of their coverages and everything like that. And I will say, like, TCU still likely wins the game, even if they don't blow all those coverages and everything. But they've struggled with drive efficiency. They haven't used the field effectively to their advantage to be able to get off the field and not give up points. 67 in explosive drives. They've given up far too many big plays. 38 in play efficiency. Where they've really excelled for them so far has been negative drives, forcing 3-and-outs, forcing turnovers. And I think some of this is having Brent Venables, who in my mind is still the best defensive coordinator in all of college football. He's got his work cut out for him, but I think he's going to get Oklahoma there eventually. If not, it's not going to probably be this season. Where they are struggling with this, they're really struggling to stop the run. We saw a lot of this in the Kansas State game. In particular, Adrian Martinez tore him up, but they also really struggled to stop the run against TCU. Even though TCU put up a bunch of passing yards, a lot of those passing yards came on really big chunk plays. You flip it around, Oklahoma's offense currently sits at number 16 overall. Jeff Lebby's your play caller. Pete Kwiatkowski is your play caller for Texas here. 42 in drive efficiency. They're not doing a good job like putting together long drives to put up points. What they are doing pretty well is putting up big plays. Number 8 overall in explosive drives. 12 in play efficiency. They have a problem. They have a problem too. Too many 3-and-outs, too many turnovers. When you look at this Oklahoma offense, and it's unsurprising, Lebby comes out of that Baylor attack, which is a far more run-oriented, it is a spread them out to run scheme. They are, but at 46 an effective pass, like they're gonna run the ball more effectively than they are gonna throw it. Dylan Gabriel is a spotty quarterback with his accuracy downfield. The Texas defense sits at number 4 overall in beta rank, and they've really improved. I mean, I think last season they really struggled. I think the switch over to the 4-2-5 has been really good for them. 20 in drive efficiency. They do need to find a way to get better at getting off the field and not giving up points, but they've done a really good job. Number 2 overall in explosive drives so far and containing big plays. That's going to be the key for them today. If they're able to contain this Oklahoma offense on big plays and force them to drive the length of the field, they should be in pretty good shape. 21 in play efficiency, but 12 in negative drives, forcing 3-and-outs, forcing turnovers. They've done really well there. Of course, you also have Gary Patterson, advising here, along with Kwiatkowski. And those are 2 of the better defensive minds in college football. So Texas isn't hurting for brains on the defensive side too. Number 5 in effective rush, number 6 in effective pass, no big run pass split. Dylan Gabriel's your QB for Oklahoma. He's at 63.9% completion percentage, 9.1 per. They are going to look, to key off the run game and see if they can get him some shots downfield. We've got Texas at an 81% win probability and 10 1/3. If Texas turns the ball over twice, Oklahoma's absolutely going to be in this, and I'll probably hear it from Oklahoma fans. But right now, straight up, like, Texas looks like the better team, with no turnovers or wackiness or special teams touchdowns in the game. This should be a really fun one. Tennessee with Josh Heupel as your head coach, LSU with Brian Kelly. Offensively, Heupel's your play caller for Tennessee. Matt House is your play caller for LSU on defense, and he's done a pretty good job. I actually thought LSU should have retained their defensive coordinator from last season, but he went back to be a position coach of the Vikings. Right now, Tennessee sits at number 1 overall in drive efficiency. They've done a terrific job completing drives and putting up points. And last season they really were too, one of the best offenses in college football. Number 11 in explosive drives. they are putting up big plays. Now, last season, they were a little more reliant on big plays than they are this season, but they're still a very explosive offense. Number 8 in play efficiency. Now, where they, they have some room to improve. And I mean, if you're an SEC defensive coordinator, this is scary. They could clean it up a little bit and have fewer 3-and-outs and turnovers, right? Like their negative drives number is a bit high here. They're at 37 in effective rush and number 4 in effective pass. And that's a flip of last season. Now, this offense, in a lot of ways, and what Hooker is doing, Hendon Hooker and Heupel are doing this season, looks a little bit more like what Heupel was doing at UCF, which is where he is running some of the principles of the Briles offense that he picked up and adapted, but he still throws the ball quite a bit out of it, and much more than you're going to see other practitioners of that Briles offense do. It's a little bit of a mix of like Heupel's air raid background along with that Briles offense, and I think that makes it one of the most interesting offenses in all of college football. It was fascinating last season, though, to see him come in to Tennessee and be able to adapt to the personnel, and they ran the ball really effectively. They were one of the best rushing teams in all of college football. For them to come in last season and be able to, or this season to be able to switch that up, and now they're able to throw it really well. That's a really impressive switch on its own. Again, defensively, LSU sits at 14. They're doing really well here so far. What they struggle with is drive efficiency. So they need to find ways to get off the field and not give up points, and I think that they will. They've done a very good job containing big plays so far, though. Number 9 in explosive drives. Number 15 overall in play efficiency. 20 in negative drives. They do a pretty good job, forcing 3-and-outs, forcing turnovers. They do have a little bit of a run pass split here. They've been very good against the pass comparatively versus where they've been against the run. I'm interested to see if Tennessee leans against leans into this and runs the ball a little bit more in this game. I think they still have that tool in their bag largely. This is one of the highlight matchups of the weekend. I'm really excited to see Tennessee's offense against LSU on the road. You flip it around, this is it's a little bit of a different story. Mike Denbrock's your off. And Hendon Hooker's at 71.7% completion percentage, 10.6 per. That's pretty good. But this will be a good test for him. Even though he's already seen some okay defenses so far, I think this will be one of the better ones he gets to see early on in the season. LSU sits at number 30 offensively. Mike Denbrock's your offensive coordinator. This is actually about where I expected LSU to be with Denbrock at OC and Jaden Daniels at QB. This is a middle-of-the-road Power 5 offense. I grade Power 5 teams on a 1 to 65 scale. They have far better resources than anybody in the group of 5. You should too. So when someone tells you, they're like, what are you talking about? We've got a top 25 offense in college football and it's a Power 5 team. If they're at like 25, you're like shading towards the middle of the Power 5. So you're okay. Congrats. Congrats. The C's get degrees, my friend. What LSU's been good at up to this point is drive efficiency. They've been able to complete their drives to put up points, but they're struggling at putting up big plays. They're struggling at maintaining a yards per play. They've done a decent job at negative drives. Number 16 overall there, avoiding 3-and-outs and avoiding turnovers. 17 in effective rush. They're versus 67 in effective pass. They're a far better running team than they are a passing team. And this is something that Jaden Daniels is going to bring to the table that I think is why he ended up with this job, and that Kelly and Denbrock are, certainly value in their QBs. Like people are like, oh, he's, Brian Kelly's never had an NFL style QB. I'm like, Brian Kelly doesn't recruit or play those dudes. Like he didn't at Notre Dame. Given the option to start one of those types of guys who, certainly that wasn't going to be like a day 1 pick in the NFL or something like that. But, some guys that like might be a little bit later, that he had available this season, he chose to go with Daniels. Tennessee's defense is struggling still. Like this defense was bad last season. They certainly has, need to improve, I think, for Tennessee to make the leap that they would like to make with Heupel. And the offense, I think, under Heupel will largely be there for them to be able to do. Tom Banks is your defensive coordinator. Or sorry, not Tom. Is that Tim? Tim. I have terrible handwriting. Tim Banks is your defensive coordinator for Tennessee. Oh, buddy. This is a very bad Power 5 defense again in the data that we have so far. They could really use a good game here. 75 in drive efficiency. They're really struggling to get off the field. 50 in explosive drives. They're also giving up a lot of big plays. 103 in play efficiency. I mean, their yards per play outside of explosives is really bad. 75 in negative drives, not forcing enough 3 and outs, not forcing enough turnovers. Now they're better against the run than they are against the pass, and that might work for them a little bit in this game. We've got Jaden Daniels as your LSU QB, 67.9% completion percentage, it's just 7 yards per. He often, if he's hitting a high completion percentage, he's usually hitting shorter stuff. He doesn't have great downfield accuracy. Tennessee on the road, this should be a really tight game. 55% win probability, 1.2 per. Or I'm sorry, not 1.2. Tennessee by 1.2. This is a game that, Tennessee turns it over, something goes wrong, there's any kind of, wacky touchdown in there that we weren't expecting. Let's say LSU gets a safety, this could easily go the other way. All we're predicting is that this could potentially be a close game. This should be a pretty fun one though. I would tune in. There's a bunch of good games in the noon slate. Of course, all competing against each other this week. There's a bunch of good games this week. This is a fun one, kind of a sneaky fun one, under the radar a little bit. We get Wazoo at USC. Jake Dickert's your head coach for Washington State. Lincoln Riley, of course, is your head coach for USC. USC's offense is rolling, right? We've certainly got them quite highly rated. Lincoln Riley's your play caller here. They have some work to do. I think if they want to, if you want to, they're not. So we've got them at number 3. If you look at it, there's I'll try to run through this quickly. An ordinal ranking, 1 to 100, 131, 1 to 25, gives the illusion of linear, a linear difference between, between ranks, right? So it gives the illusion that the difference between 1 and 2 is 1, right? The difference between 1 and 2 is 1 and 3 is 2. The difference between 1 and 3 in the top offenses in college football is not 2. It is a lot larger than that. So if USC wants to compete with Ohio State, who has the best offense in college football right now as of this week, and data may change, but the Buckeyes look pretty darn good. They need to start finishing drives and putting up points more than they have up to now. They've been very good at putting up really big plays, and that's where the majority of their points have come from. If they have been stymied though at putting up big plays like they were against Oregon State, they can definitely stub their toe or walk face first into a wall. Riley's got to do a better job play calling, figuring out what his guys can actually execute to be able and consistently execute. And they have to, if the big plays aren't there, they have to be a lot more patient than they have shown that they have been able to be up to this point, because that 25 in drive efficiency needs to improve for them to, I think, make real progress offensively this year. Also, their defense sucks, so they need to make that progress. Number 11 overall in negative drives. They've done a pretty good job, even though they haven't finished drives, of at least not going 3 and out, not having a lot of turnovers. And that's certainly been one of the hallmarks so far, is most of this negative drives number that you see here is 3 and outs rather than turnovers. They've done a pretty good job. Riley, doesn't run the traditional air raid. It reminds me, his version of the air raid reminds me a little bit more of a Dennis Erickson or Joe Tiller type of one back offense, where there's a lot of power runs matched to, an air raid type scheme. Tiller didn't run an air raid, but same concept, in a lot of ways, same concepts. You get a Washington State defense under Brian Ward, who's come over. And Dickert has a terrific background as a DC as well. Number 29 overall. That's a decent Power 5. They're, like I talked about, that's a middle of the road Power 5 defense for Wazoo, and how hard it is to recruit players, to Washington State to be able. And this is when Alex Grinch was there, putting together this kind of a defense at Washington State is not easy. And this is a credit to them that they've been able to do this. What they're doing really well is they're finding ways to get off the field and not give up points. Number 9 in drive efficiency. I'm interested to see if they can sustain that, though, because some of their other metrics are a little leaky. They've definitely given up some big plays. Number 61 in explosive drives. Their play efficiency number is pretty good. So maybe what it is that they just need to contain big plays a little bit better. Not forcing as many 3-and-outs as you'd expect. Big watch out here, and where this game could get out of hand and not go well for Wazoo. They are at 53 in effective pass versus 6. That's a pretty big split. They've been a lot better against the run than they have against the pass up to this point. I'm really interested to see how this is going to work for them here. Now, they haven't faced the world's greatest run of quarterbacks up to this point. But you can certainly throw the ball against Wazoo, and USC has some guys. I mean, you flip it around, you got a Washington State offense that's not exceptional, number 40 overall in beta rank. They struggle a little bit with drive efficiency in particular. They need to be able to be more consistent to put up drives and complete drives and put up some points, but still putting up a lot of big plays relatively speaking. This isn't a great Power 5 offense. They're struggling with negative drives, too many 3-and-outs, too many turnovers. They do have a huge run pass split. They run a version of the air raid that is far more, that emphasizes throwing the ball far more. Eric Morris is your offensive coordinator here. Alex Grinch is your DC for USC. They've profoundly struggled up to this point. They struggle with drive efficiency. They have struggled with big plays, and 53 in play efficiency. Their negative drives number is overwhelmingly driven by turnovers. They have a ton of turnovers rather than 3-and-outs. I'm not sure that that's sustainable over the length of the season, as we've seen with Iowa in the past. They do have a pretty big run pass split themselves. They struggle defending the run, but they're better, relatively speaking, against the pass. I'm interested I don't expect Wazoo to run the ball very much in this game, but they might want to, considering how much USC struggles to defend the run. Cam Ward, who is your quarterback for Washington State, has took a little bit of a step forward. We've talked about this. I saw him in person play at Wisconsin. He has struggled a little bit adapting to FBS football. There are times early in the season where he was a bit of a one-read QB, and if that one read wasn't there, he pulled it down and ran, and got his eyes down and tried to run with it. He started to put it together more against Cal, started to find his second, and third reads, was able to find more over the middle than he has in other games. That would be a really good sign for Washington State if he is starting to put it together more and be able to access more of the offense, particularly over the middle where they often have some guys open. Teams figured out that he was almost always looking over at the sidelines, in particular into the flats. 68.6 completion percentage, 7.6 for Cam Ward. USC, we got them as a 77% win probability in this game, 8.3 for. I mean, like we talked about a little bit, like there's definitely a possibility with Washington State's pass defense for this game to get a little bit out of control if USC hits some big plays. Chris Kleeman is your head coach at Kansas State. Is it Kleeman? I should have looked that one up. Matt Campbell's your head coach I can do that one at Iowa State. This should also sets up to be a pretty fun, solid game. Kansas State's been pretty good so far offensively. Colin Klein's your offensive coordinator here. 21 in beta rank so far. They've been very good at drive efficiency. I mean, and this will be interesting to see again, like whether this is sustainable over the season. Helps when your QB can run, like Martinez has been utilized running the football so far this year. But they've struggled at putting up big plays, 47 in explosive drives. They've struggled a little bit with their play efficiency number. Now they've done quite well with negative drives. So avoiding 3-and-outs, avoiding turnovers. Like this is an efficiency based offense, right? Like don't go 3-and-out. Be able to sustain drives, and they're not putting up big plays at a big clip. And when they do, they're often relying on Martinez's legs. Huge run pass split here. I mean, this offensive profile, like if you gave me like a blind taste test I might say this is like a service academy. Like we talked about with that drive efficiency number, like service academies are able to maintain high drive efficiency numbers and often have pretty good negative drives numbers, even though they aren't necessarily putting up big plays and that kind of thing. And you can see that kind of split that's sustainable over the year. And then you look down and you're like, oh yeah, they're running the ball like crazy. Like this is Air Force. They get an Iowa State defense that's pretty good. John Heacock's your defensive coordinator. He's done a really, really good job in Ames. I think one of the more underappreciated defensive coordinators in all of college football. They've done okay, and they have some work to do in drive efficiency, finding ways to get off the field and avoiding put up points. I should also say, I always scale. We live in the era of offense. So when I try to give people a comparison here, these defensive numbers are scaled to where the offensive numbers are. So you could be the number one defense in college football. You're probably still giving up points, even if you're going to play the number one offense, because offenses are just better in this era that we live in. They're number 6 in explosive drives. They've done a really good job preventing big plays, avoiding giving up, explosives. Number 2 in play efficiency. They do limit what you're going to do yards per play wise. Now, 41 in negative drives. This is something they need to work on. They need to be better at putting up, forcing 3 and outs, forcing turnovers. That would be really helpful for them, in particular for their offense. 27 in effective rush versus 17 in effective pass. That's not necessarily the split you want coming into this game, because Kansas State's, not going to beat you through the air. But this should be a fun matchup anyway. I mean, I am really excited to see this. I mean, I think, like I said, like Heacock's one of the better, DCs in the game. He should have, some cards up his sleeve in this one. Adrian Martinez is, completing 62.2% of his passes, 5.5 per. They're not asking, that's not what they're asking from him for the most part. Offensively, man, this Iowa State offense is struggling quite a bit. Tom Manning's your offensive coordinator. And they've been decent offensively in the past. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say they were a great offense, but they were a decent offense with, when Purdy was there. Very much not so right now. 29 overall in drive efficiency. This is a decent number compared to some of the horrific numbers you're going to see as we, of course, continue to go down. They're really struggling to put up big plays. 107 in explosive drives, 104 in play efficiency. They're struggling. Too many 3 and outs, too many turnovers by a lot. I mean, these are really bad numbers. 100 in effective rush versus 38 in effective pass. They are going to try to throw the ball on you. Hunter Deckers is your QB, 69.3% completion percentage, 7.0 per. Offensively, they're gonna have to have a pretty good day here, because it is gonna be like, this game's not gonna be shouldn't be a blowout, but it could get there if Iowa State's defense has a little bit of a bad day. Defensively, Kansas State looks pretty good so far. Now, they have a little bit of a split here that I think is a little bit of a concern. Joe Klanderman's your defensive coordinator for Kansas State. They've been very good at drive efficiency, finding ways to use the field to their advantage to not give up points, but they've given up some big plays. 29 in explosive drives. Their play efficiency number's not great at 49. Negative drives, not enough 3 and outs, not enough turnovers. No big run pass split here for them. We've got this as Kansas State, 65% win probability on the road, 4.33. This should be a fun one. Like I said, like what to watch here. I don't know that Iowa State's going to put up a ton of points unless they start to put it together a little bit. But like we talked about with like the difference with like Kansas State has their own split between their drive efficiency numbers on defense, but they've looked a lot better than this Iowa State offense. It's going to depend. It's really going to depend on their ability to contain Kansas State's offense and force them into positions where, like, if you want to force them into positions where they have to throw the ball, because they're not very good at that up to this point. Where are we at? We're at game 5. We talked about this a little bit in the intro. Like, this should be a really fun game. We're going to learn a lot in this football game about both of these teams. Kyle Whittingham versus Chip Kelly here. I think I have this backwards as far as like who's playing at who. this is an oops on me. It is Utah at UCLA. So we've got the UCLA offense coming in. Chip Kelly's your play caller here. They're at 26 overall. They've struggled with drive efficiency, like completing drives to put up points. I mean, I think the South Alabama game is a bit of an example of that. And I expect this drive efficiency number to improve for them. I mean, Chip Kelly doesn't normally run like the Phil Longo offense, which is like all big plays. And like, you don't really worry, like drive efficiency is like to the wind, like who cares? He's normally got a drive efficiency number that's more in line with some of his other numbers. And that if they're able to do that, to not leave points on the field and be able to finish their drives, this number at 26 is going to improve for them. They've been quite good at big plays at 17 over there overall there. Doing a good job avoiding 3-and-outs and turnovers, number 9. They have no big run pass split here. And Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I think, has done a really good job. And I think you could argue he's taken a step forward as a passer. Again, now he's been there a while, so he should know this offense inside and out and where guys are going to be. Keep an eye on Chase Cota not Chase Cota. He went to Oregon. Bobo. It's quite early in the morning. The transfer from Duke, keep an eye on him. He is in some ways like in the last couple of years in the Chip Kelly offense. It's been the tight end that has been the real weapon Bobo in a lot of ways is like a big wide receiver. He's like a very big wide receiver. Who's often lined up inside and is running those kinds of routes for them this year. They get a Utah defense that's doing okay. They're kind of scuffling along. 49 overall in beta rank right now. They've been decent at drive efficiency, number 36 overall here, but a little less good at explosive drives. They've definitely given up some big plays. They're not forcing nearly enough 3-and-outs and turnovers, and this is my big concern for them right now. 79 overall in negative drives. They've been better against the pass than they have been against the run, but like last week when they boat raced Oregon State threw a lot of picks and had 2 pick sixes in the game. That will change what the scoreboard looks like. It has underneath that, an Oregon State offense that hasn't been great this year. Move the ball against them, and that's really a problem, I think, if you're Utah. Morgan Scalley's your defensive coordinator here. Where do I have these written down? DTRs at 74.3, completion percentage 8.7 per. Look, Utah has not played. I mean, they've played some really bad offenses so far this season. This will be one of the first decent offenses they really get to play against. It's going to give us a good measuring stick if they're going to improve over what we've seen so far this season. I wouldn't be at all surprised. I mean, like Utah's played some just really bad competition up to this point. It'll be interesting to see where they sit relative to, is this a case of bad competition and we need to bump them up? Or is this a case of like where we had them accurately ranked? Offensively, Utah's done a pretty good job. They do have some room to improve though, again, and some of this, this is going to be a measure of like, what have we seen from them up to this point, because they haven't played great competition. 31 overall, Andy Ludwig's your offensive coordinator here. They need to do better at drive efficiency, number 53 here. They also need to be putting up big plays at a higher clip, 29. This was a top 10 offense last season. Keithy's out, but they do need to find ways to make it work. They have some decent, other, options at tight end, Kincaid, but they're going to have to find some options in the passing game, I think. 32 in play efficiency, 38 in negative drives. They've got a run pass split that's not surprising. Like they run the ball more effectively than they throw it. You get a UCLA defense that, in a lot of ways, like this, I'm interested to see where they end up here. Bill McGovern's your new defensive coordinator in town. Now, they had been slightly improving under Jerry Azanaro year after year. They finished in the 50s last season in beta rank, but they're struggling with drive efficiency. They need to find ways to use the field to their advantage and not give up points. But they've done a pretty good job containing big plays, number 7 overall here. That's something like Utah last season relied a lot on big plays. They were a very explosive offense. UCLA's going to need to carry that into this game and force Utah to drive the length of the field. Decent in play efficiency. They've done a very good job at negative drives, forcing 3-and-outs and forcing turnovers, but They have a pretty big run pass split. They've been far better against the run than they have been against the pass. And that might work to their advantage in this game. Like this might be a good spot for UCLA in a lot of ways. You're not going to ask, this isn't going to be like when they play USC and you're asking, these easy Hearns of the world to cover some terrific wide receivers. UCLA's defensive front is very good against the run, and I expect that this matchup should be a lot of fun here, getting to watch the UCLA run defense against Utah. Utah might need to find something something going in the passing game in this one. And as we saw, UCLA can't, like, if Utah's defense is where they think that we have them rated at the moment, and it's not a problem of the level of competition or the Utah slow start problem, then DTR might carve him up a little bit as he did against Washington. I don't think Utah's defense is as bad as Washington, but I would like to see them play better than we have up to this point against middling competition. We've got a UCLA 61% completion percentage. Oh, I should say Cam Rising's at 68.3 completion percentage, 8.3 per. UCLA has a 61% win probability in this game at home, and we've got them at 3.56, which is basically home field advantage ish. This should be a fun one. We've got East Carolina at Tulane. Michael Pratt's your head coach at East Carolina. No, he's your quarterback. Mike Houston's your head coach. I messed up my notes on this back page here, and like things are not where I normally put them in order. Not my best work. Mike Houston's your head coach. Willie Fritz is your head coach for Tulane. Offensively, Tulane is coached by Jim Svoboda. And they're a pretty good group of 5 offense, right? Like if we grade, it's 65 to 131 for the for the group of 5. They're doing a decent job at drive efficiency at 56 overall, and a decent job again at explosive drives. They could improve at their play efficiency, number 96 here, but they're doing a decent job as well at negative drives, avoiding 3 and outs, avoiding turnovers. And this is Tulane went in and beat Kansas State, in a pretty tight game. They don't have a big run pass split. I'm a little surprised at that, but Michael Pratt, their QB, has been pretty good so far this year. They're more willing to rely on him and be less run dependent than these offenses under Fritz have been in the past. Pratt is at 63.5 completion percentage, 9.4 per. They get it. ECU defense, this is a pretty good group of 5 defense. Like this should be a fun matchup, I think, in particular of these 2 units. But ECU has some interesting splits here that I'm kind of dying to see tested so far. They're doing a really good job preventing points. They have absolutely found ways to get off the field without giving up points, but holy Moses, like you can absolutely put up big plays against this team. They've struggled a little bit with negative drives comparatively. They have a huge run pass split. They are really good against the run versus really struggling against the pass. Keep an eye on Pratt's numbers here. If he has a big day against this ECU defense, like this could get a little ugly. Blake Harrell's your defensive coordinator for ECU here. So that's there are some things in this game where it's like, is this an artifact of like a small sample that we're looking at here with ECU and this run pass split should come down? Or are we really seeing, and I would argue like perhaps the run pass split condenses a bit, but it's likely still going to be there. Like this pass defense does very much look like they're struggling. You flip it around to the other side of the ball. Donnie Kirkpatrick is your offensive coordinator for ECU. Chris Hampton's your DC for Tulane. Offensively, ECU this is another pretty good group of 5 offense. They are at 58 overall in drive efficiency. They've done a pretty good job putting together long drives and putting up points. Their explosive drives number at 76, relatively speaking, this is something that they could improve on. They've done a very good job with negative drives, avoiding 3 and outs, avoiding turnovers. They have a big run pass split. Like they're going to come in looking to throw the ball, 35 an effective pass. They're going to get one of the best group of 5 defenses we have going right now. This is what really got Tulane in that K-State game. They're at 28 overall in beta rank, doing a really good job in drive efficiency, 19 in explosive drives, 22 in play efficiency. The one watch out for what is like a group of 5 standards, just an excellent unit thus far into the season, is number 58 negative drives. They need to force more 3 and outs and force more turnovers. Now they do have a run pass split. They're at 26 in effective pass versus 43 in effective rush, and that matches up pretty well in this game. I'm excited to see them get a pretty good group of 5 offense, here with ECU in this matchup in particular. Chris Hampton's certainly a name to keep an eye on as this season kind of winds down. We're in the middle of it now. As we get to like months from now, right? Like as people are looking for new defensive coordinators, like keep an eye on Chris Hampton. A smart head coach who needs a new DC might look over here. Somebody that can do it like this at the group of 5 level is certainly to keep an eye on. Someone to keep an eye on. We've got Tulane at 71% win probability here, 6.9. Almost 7 points at home. This should be, like I said, this should be a really good matchup. ECU's offense may not be able to keep them up to stay in this, or a defense may not be able to keep them up to stay in this game, but the offense has a shot. This is a decent, like I said, this is, a pretty good group of 5 offense. We're just going to get to see them against like one of the best defenses in the group of 5. So that's it. That's the Saturday 6. We made it. We made it in relatively 46 minutes, maybe an hour. I'm not going to talk for another 14 minutes, or we're not 47 minutes, but I'm not going to talk for another 13 minutes, maybe 50 minutes. So let's just wrap it up. I mean, I'm excited to see all these games today. You should be too if you love college football. Keep an eye on these ones in particular and some of the things that we talked about, whether they come true in this game or not, in these games or not. You can find everything on the website. Let's just do that because it's early and I gotta get to the gym and then get out to a freezing morning in Columbus to go coach some kids. You can find all the stats you just saw and a whole lot more at sharpcollegefootball.com. You can find me, Rob Bowron, the econometrician behind BetaRank at BetaRankFB or at Sharp College Football. We have a Pac-12 podcast at 12 Pack Radio, and you can find all the back episodes of that at sharpcollegefootball.com/12 Pack Radio. My friends, that's the other thing we rolled out this week that I didn't even talk about in the opener. We we're all in season data. We also rolled out FCS beta rank, which is not, and I say this and I say like, it's not pseudo beta rank. Like it's not some, it's not some like, oh, we did the best we could with the stats we had for FCS. It's the exact same quality data that we build beta rank on for FBS, but for FCS teams, and it's now on the site. And I'm so excited about this. I will do a Saturday 6 for the FCS playoffs, like for sure. We're gonna have fun with this. But check that out. I think I'm really excited to get the FCS stuff out there, be able to learn more about what's going on at that level of college football, and be able to bring that level of measurement to FCS. So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy the games today, and beta rank will be updated tomorrow, and we'll have more data in. So I'm excited as the season goes on. It's been a really fun college football season so far.